United States President Donald Trump under pressure as the director of the FBI testifies before a congressional committee. Did Russia influence the outcome of the U.S. presidential election? And what is Russia's reaction? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. Since taking office in January, U.S. President Trump has not been able to shake off one particular controversial issue: allegations that his presidential campaign had ties to Russia. And this week, while testifying before Congress, the FBI Director James Comey confirmed that his bureau is investigating the issue.
The FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. And that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any coordination between the campaign and Russia's efforts.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration is pushing back, saying there was no collusion or secret cooperation. Here's the White House press secretary.
Over and over again, to the dismay of every one of you guys, is that when the people who have been briefed by the FBI about collusion between individuals, the answer continues to be no. And at some point, take no for an answer. When these people, both sides of the aisle, Obama appointees, elected Democrats, elected Republicans, say no evidence suggested, at some point, it's not just about me, it's about you. Take no for an answer and realize that the people, while you can have an investigation, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to jump to the conclusion that, aha, it must be about the collusion between those two things.
Let's get to our panel right now. Joining me now from Atlanta is Michael Daugherty. He's a cybersecurity expert and Donald Trump supporter. He's also the author of The Devil Inside the Beltway. With us from London is Alexander Nekrassov. He is a former Kremlin advisor and political analyst. Joining us from New York is Liling Tan. She is a correspondent for CGTN and covers the United Nations. And with me here in the studio is Alberto Avendano. He is the Washington bureau chief and White House correspondent at the National Association of Hispanic Publications. Welcome to all of you to the show. Michael, let me start with you. Let's start with these revelations by the FBI director that there is an investigation going on into these allegations that there were some kind of links between President Trump's campaign and Russia. This investigation, we are told, has been going on since July. So far, the FBI has not provided the public with any evidence, but looking at what he said there at that hearing, how serious is this for Trump and his team?
I really don't think it's that serious. I think that you have to, this is a word game, a wordsmithing game. Anytime someone's involved in Russia, in the United States, in a presidential election, those teams of people, they're going to investigate. I'm curious why he also didn't say Hillary Clinton was under investigation. This morning in the news, people on the left were upset that he didn't say that last July before the election. They're wondering, why is he saying that now? So both sides of the aisle are wondering why he's bringing this up now and really just saying there's an investigation. Well, you know what? When we have people in any election, in any part of the United States commerce involved in Russia, you know, we need to make sure we know what's going on. So, you know, at this point, it's just a sentence.
Alexander, there are politicians here in the United States, there are people in the media here in the United States who are convinced that Russia tried to influence the outcome of that election last November. Some even call it an act of war. But what's the view from Russia?
Well, the view from Russia is that even if some hackers from Russia tried to intervene in the United States elections, they would not have been able to influence its results. It's actually obscene to think that it is possible for some Russian groups, even allegedly groups which are coordinating their activities with the security services, that they will be able to actually change the course of an election, of the presidential election in America. This just sounds, you know, surreal. But I think that one important point is being missed by everybody. I think when we talk about the so-called links to Russia and the Russian connection, if we start accusing everyone who had some dealings with Russia, who knew some people from Russia, or for example, people like property developers across all of the West who were selling properties to rich Russians. Then you have links with everyone. Then you have everybody linked to Russia. I can tell you, I personally knew politicians in Britain who were asking me to put them in touch with Russian big oligarchs, you know, billionaires, because they wanted to deal with them, they wanted to help them, and so on. So I can, you know, give you a list of thousands of people who are supposedly linked to Russia. This whole situation is getting out of control, to be honest.
Alberto, so we have this investigation. It's been going on for about 9 months now, yet, as I pointed out, there hasn't been any evidence that's provided to the public. So what do you think this is? Is this some kind of fishing expedition? Or?
A fishing expedition is a good word. I mean, one of the good things about this administration is that everything around it is starting to get into the novelistic environment. And President Trump helps a lot. What I mean is that, did you remember during the campaign, candidate Trump calling on Russia to hack Hillary Clinton's emails? On a more serious note, what the FBI is saying is that they are investigating the environment of President Trump. And you know what? There are two specific guys that have been in the news. One is the former Trump foreign policy advisor, Carter Page, who did an incendiary, to call it somehow, speech in Moscow, or Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign manager at the time, working for the leadership in Ukraine when that leadership was backed by Russia. So we have a great novel staff. I am enjoying it a lot. My problem is, as an American, are we really making too much noise and not focusing in what we need to focus in this country? That's my open question.
So in a sense, then, has this become political?
I think mostly everything is political right now, including today's hearing of Judge Gorsuch. Everything is political. Everything is extremely charged. There is a lot of animosity in this city right now. It feels, coming to this studio today, I felt a strong controversial vibration in this city right now. It is fascinating times right now living in Washington, D.C. And I think this administration still has to go through a lot of hurdles, some of them built by their own.
Right, let's bring in Liling Tan. She's our United Nations correspondent. Liling, these accusations that are being made against Russia, what are you hearing at the UN? How do other countries see these developments?
We're not hearing a lot of official comment from the UN. Remember that where the UN is concerned, this is essentially a US-Russia issue so far. But whether you call it a fishing expedition, a sentence, or distraction, this is something that is viewed with a good measure of concern, especially in Europe and in countries that are holding elections this year, namely France and Germany. Now, the EU has warned that Russia has been seeking to influence or meddle in elections there using a disinformation campaign. Now, this isn't entirely surprising or unexpected, given that there have been accusations historically of Russian attempts to interfere in European affairs. But what could be concerning, most concerning, is that, remember, the US is the most powerful nation in the world. And the fact, or the question that, the possibility rather, that Russia could try to interfere in its elections to a degree of success is a frightening prospect, because it raises the question of, if Russia could do this in the US, what could it do in France? What could it do in Germany? So at the very best, it's disconcerting, and at the very worst, it's quite frightening.
Right, Michael, this seems to have gone in all directions, you know, these stories of intrigue. We've learned another new term in the past few months, and that is deep state. We even heard the Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer say at one point that if you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, look, what we're seeing here is a miraculous concerns from November the 8th on suddenly for influencing. And we're using words like influence. What does that mean? Does that mean dial the phone, drop a bomb, spend billions? I mean, what, you know, so everyone can tweet twist this to their own advantage, as if suddenly the world cares about election influencing. Foreign countries were giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, and suddenly that dried up when she lost power, so I guess that wasn't about charity. Barack Obama spent, what, $300 million of taxpayers' money to try to get rid of Netanyahu. This is not new. This is not new that any country tries to influence, but the degree to which is interesting. And the agenda that people have to bring it on, I have to say, it's not coincidental, and I don't think it goes unnoticed by most of the public. So I think it's interesting as Trump once again sends the press out on a wild goose chase. They can't help but take it, and they have to be very, very careful here, because they are going to come back and lose their credibility once again with the American public. Because, look, Trump won, the Republicans didn't win. Trump won. The Washington establishment lost. It wasn't just the Democrats that lost. And that's why you're seeing such an incredible, I think, political temper tantrum by the establishment and the media.
Yeah, but when we look at these inquiries that are going on, Michael, as well as the hearings that are taking place in Congress, did Trump to a certain extent bring this upon himself?
Oh, he certainly did, and I don't know that he doesn't mind it. I think this is a guy as a master manipulator who throws out the shiny object red herrings while behind the scenes what his new administration is doing really is not getting reported. And he might like that because the media, he has been like no one else really right in the eye to the media expressing his contempt for them. That is quite a large gauntlet to put down, and there aren't many presidents that got away with that. So I don't think he minds it.
Okay, Alexander, looking at those hearings that took place in Congress, we heard the FBI Director James Comey at that hearing, and I'm quoting here, he said, Putin hated Clinton and had a clear preference for the person running against the person he hated so much. Now, we don't know how Comey got to that conclusion, how he knew what Putin's sentiments were at that time. But is there anything to suggest that he was doing this because he harbored that feeling?
Well, it's quite a remarkable statement that the FBI director made, because this is a powerful feeling, hatred. The feeling in the Kremlin, as I understand it, and I was talking to some of the people there, was that Trump had no chance of winning. And, all the polls were showing that and so on. So to think that in this situation, Putin decided, got his intelligence chiefs together and said, okay, guys, we need to do something to help Trump win. Trump, by the way, was seen by Moscow as a very unpredictable leader. It's a very big misconception that everybody in Russia, in the government, in the Kremlin, were just hoping that Trump would win. Okay, he said a few nice things about Putin and about Russia, but he also said things which were not very good for Russia. Building up the military. He made quite aggressive statements at some point about Russia and shooting down its planes and so on. So I don't understand how it suddenly became a situation when the Russian president allegedly, decided to do everything possible to help Trump win. This is a made-up situation. And basically, I can add another thing, which is quite remarkable about this whole situation and the FBI director briefing, his statements. He came out with a statement, for example, saying that there is no proof that Trump had been wiretapped by anybody.
Yeah.
Now, I am quite amazed because it only took him, several days after Trump made this accusation to suddenly come up and say, no, there's no proof. It takes months, many months, maybe years to investigate such an allegation made by the President of the United States. And yet, this man just comes up and says, no way, there's nothing happening. I'm sorry, but on this basis alone, I don't trust him.